Hello, Year 9. So, week 2, lesson 1. You've got my face on this first slide, but I am going to hand over in a moment to Mrs. Gardner. So just a few reminders on how to get the best out of this lesson. Quiet place, wherever that may be, bedroom, sofa, earplugs in, do way over your head, whatever, exercise book, device, notepad, doesn't matter what, as long as you've got somewhere to record your work. Try and make sure it's all in the same place so you can see your learning journey. Check Teams, make sure you know what you're doing, make sure you're uploading your work so we can see what you're doing, and work hard, listen carefully, pause the video when you need to. There are some moments in this video where you'll need to click pause to make sure you read the information on your screen, okay? So make sure you check. I've put a little pause button on there for you, okay? Right, I'm going to hand over to the one and only Mrs. Gardner. Enjoy.
Good morning, Year 9. Here we are, week 2, and our first lesson of the Crucible. We're just doing a quick recap to start with this morning. What do we know so far? So we know that the Crucible takes place in Salem, Massachusetts, in the USA. We know the year is 1692. We know the play is based on witch hunts, which led to hysteria and persecution. And then last week you were introduced to 4 of the characters: Reverend Paris, Tituba, Betty and Abigail Williams. So I'd just like you to think about those 4 characters. You don't have to write anything down, but see if you can answer those questions in red in brackets before you look at the next slide to check that you're carrying some of your learning from last week forward. Okay, so have a quiet think, get your answers ready in your head before you move on to the next slide, and then see if you're right. Okay, so hopefully the answers that you created in your head while you were looking at the last slide relate to the answers that I've given you there. So Paris, very important man in a Puritan society, which was all based on very strong religious beliefs. He was the man in charge. He ran the church, which was the main meeting place in Salem at that time. Tituba is Paris's servant or slave from Barbados, and Betty is Paris's daughter, who is lying ill in bed after some strange events going on in the wood. And finally, Abigail Williams, who appears to be a polite young Puritan girl and is Paris's niece. We're not quite sure about her. She seems polite and obedient, and yet there are small hints, small clues in her language and her behaviour that she's actually going to turn out to be quite an untrustworthy character who is perhaps capable of some evil deeds. So well done there if you'd remembered basically who all of those characters were from your work last week. So recapping again on work done last week, you looked at writer's techniques, and 3 of the techniques you focused on were adjectives, verbs and adverbs. What I'd like you to do now is write the title, Identifying Word Types, in your book, on your paper, on your device, wherever you're doing your work, remembering to underline it. And then I would like you to draw your own 3-column table like the one shown on this slide, putting the 3 titles at the top of adjective, verb and adverb. I would then like you to take the words in the box at the top of this screen and separate them into those 3 different word types. So there are 12 words in the box, 4 adjectives, 4 verbs, 4 adverbs. Can you identify those word types and put them into the correct column? So the columns of your table hopefully look like this. Adjectives, small, beautiful, narrow, upper. Verbs, smashing, weeping, scrambling, mumbling. And adverbs, evidently, already, gently and innocently. Right, before we move on to the next part of the Crucible text, I would like you, please, to write me 3 of your own sentences using words from the table on the slide in front of you. You can just write ordinary sentences with these words somewhere in the middle, or if you want to set yourself a bit more of a challenge, you can use an adjective, a verb and an adverb opener. And you'll see I've done an example of each for you in the box here. So adjective, narrow streets were all that could be seen for miles and miles, whichever way you looked. Verb opener, smashing through the thick dark jungle. Jane knew she was only moments away from death. Poor Jane. And adverb, already the rain had started to fall more heavily and there was no shelter in sight. Okay, so wherever you're doing your work, under the table that you've now completed, I would like 3 sentences, please. One with an adjective in, one with a verb in, one with an adverb in, and if you're setting yourself more of a challenge, using each of those word types as your actual sentence opener. Pause the slideshow while you complete that. So here is the character mind map for Who's Who in the Crucible that you were introduced to last week. All the characters that you were introduced to last week are now in red, and your 2 new ones for today's lesson, Thomas Putnam and Goody Putnam. Remember, the word goody is the word used for Mrs. at the time the play is set, so we would call her Mrs. Putnam today, but in 1692 she would have been called Goody Putnam. The next piece of text from the Crucible introduces us to two new characters, a husband and wife, Mr. Thomas Putnam and Mrs. Anne Putnam. Interestingly, Mr. Thomas Putnam is actually based on another real character, just like Abigail Williams. Mr. Thomas Putnam lived in the village of Salem in Massachusetts at the time of the Salem witch trials. And as you will see, he wasn't a very pleasant man, and he actually tried to use the witch trials to make himself wealthier in terms of money, but also wealthier in terms of how much land he owned. On the next slide, I'm going to give you some information about the actual man himself, the real Thomas Putnam that existed in 1692 in the village of Salem, and who watched and actually encouraged the witch trials to happen. I want you to read through that information for me carefully, and then there will be an instruction for you on the slide that follows that. Right, back to your exercise book's paper device. We now need a side heading, the character of Thomas Putnam. You can see I've included that side heading for you at the top of the screen. When you've written that side heading, I want you to answer the following 6 questions. Most of the answers can be found in the text that you've just read on the previous slide. Just a couple of them need you to think beyond the text and write your own opinion about what you've read and what you think about Thomas Putnam so far. Read through those instructions at the top of the box, which remind you to answer clearly, to start each of your answers with a capital letter, and to make sure that you finish your answer with a full stop. Okay, off you go. Okay, so this is the piece of text where we're introduced to Mr. and Mrs. Putnam. You'll see at the top of the sheet on the left, it says, "Enter Mrs. Putnam. She is a twisted soul of 45, a death-ridden woman, haunted by dreams." As I read through it, I think it will make more sense if I don't read the stage directions out. So we'll see how we go. You'll need to follow the text carefully, because neither am I going to go, and now Paris is talking, and now Mrs. Putnam is talking. Okay, so here we go. Paris, as you will see, is the first person to speak. No, I cannot have anyone. Why, Goody Putnam, come in. It is a marvel. It is surely a stroke of hell upon you. No, Goody Putnam it is. How high did she fly? How high? No, she never flew. Why, it's sure she did. Mr. Collins saw her going over Ingersoll's barn and come down light as a bird, he says. Now look you, Goody Putnam, she never... Oh, Good morning, Mr. Putnam. It is a providence the thing is out now. It is a providence. What's out, sir? Why? Her eyes is closed. Look you, Anne. Why, that is strange. Ours is open. Your Ruth is sick. I'd not call it sick. The devil's touch is heavier than sick. It's death, you know. It's death driven into them, forked and hooved. Oh, pray not. Why, how does Ruth ail? She ails as she must. She never waked this morning, but her eyes open and she walks and hears naught, sees naught, and cannot eat. Her soul is taken surely. They say you've sent for Reverend Hale of Beverley. A precaution only. He has much experience in all demonic arts, and he has indeed, and found a witch in Beverley last year, and let you remember that. Now, Goody Anne, they only thought that were a witch, and I am certain there be no element of witchcraft here. No witchcraft! Now look you, Mr. Parris. Thomas, I pray you, leap not to witchcraft. I know that you least of all, Thomas, would ever wish so disastrous a charge laid upon me. We cannot leap to witchcraft. They will howl me out of Salem for such corruption in my house.
Okay, how did she do? I think that was pretty good for Mrs. Gardner. Okay, well done for all your hard work, Year 9 and Mrs. Gardner. Well done. I'm very proud of her. Look at her technology skills, shooting through the roof. Okay, well done. See you all next lesson. Work hard and stay safe, most importantly. Look after yourselves, Year 9. Bye.